Hey everybody, Brian Leslie Fathery. Glad to see you again here on episode number 5 of the Unbreakable podcast. Today we're going to be discussing expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Expectations that you set as parents for your children's interaction with you.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to be talking in whether on this particular podcast or in more content that's going to be on YouTube. We're going to be talking about expectations you set between siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Also, expectations for if you have a special needs child,
Yeah.
someone with ADD, ADHD, autism, any of those things. So, 2 or 3 different topics today. We're going to start today with setting expectations for your children
Yeah.
on how to behave and interact with you. I'm going to jump on one thing real quick,
Yes.
and then I'm going to kind of turn it over to Leslie for a little bit as well. So, one of the things that we did with our children, I'm going to talk about obedience. We have an expectation, right,
Mm-hmm.
for our children to obey us.
Yes.
Now, first off, you need to have an expectation that they'll obey you.
Yes.
You know, many of you probably don't even expect your child to obey you. You expect a fight. You expect an argument.
Mm-hmm.
You expect to, go through the whole lawyer thing with your children
Yeah.
and reason with them and logic with them. That doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
It just doesn't. I'm glad if you think it should. I'm not trying to tell you what you should or shouldn't do here, but I'm telling you, you're going to have a lot more heartache doing it that way.
Yeah.
So what we did, we set an expectation with our children. And this was the theme at our house. Obey the first time with a smile.
Yes.
That was the expectation. Very simple, very clear, very succinct. I can't get that word out. But we did it in a way that they could, even as when they're little,
Yeah.
they could understand that what that meant. We expect you to obey us. We expect you to do it when we tell you whatever it is we tell you to
First
do.
time we ask.
The first time we ask, and we expect you to do it with a good attitude,
Yes.
with a smile.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what happened. Kids are kids, and kids will test you.
Yes.
They will challenge you. They will push for boundaries. They want boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They tell you they don't, but they really do.
Right.
And so all of our children went through this, every single one of them. And so we would give them a directive.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to
Pick up your
pick
clothes.
up the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And they go walk away. I'm like, nope, come back. Let's try it again.
Yep.
First time with a smile. And they're like, and they huff and puff a little bit. It's like, okay, we want you to pick up your clothes. Fine. Nope, you're getting closer. But we're not there yet. First time with a smile. We had patience and grace with them.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't actually first time, was it?
No.
But we were training them.
Right.
You know, one of the scriptures that's the foundation, we'll talk about this before we jumped on here, that's for foundation for what we do is if you will train up a child in the way they will go, when they're older, they won't depart from it.
Sure.
And that includes picking up their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
It's spiritual, but see, they won't obey you in the spiritual things until they learn how to obey you in the natural things.
Right.
So we set a very simple expectation. Listen, obey, smile.
Yeah.
First time.
Another reason that we gave and helped explain to them why they needed to obey us is because they needed to obey us that they could see,
Yeah.
so that they would be able to obey God, who they cannot see.
Right.
And so it's easier to learn how to obey who's right in front of you and who you can actually see and tell are right there.
Yeah.
But God is a different thing, and you have to have faith, and you have to walk in a little bit higher level of understanding to obey the Lord.
Yeah.
And so we wanted them to learn firsthand. Let's obey at home or mom and dad first,
Right.
and then they could obey God.
Yeah. And so we have always set expectations for every single child, no matter what their personality type was, no matter what their ability to learn educationally was.
Right.
Now, we would adapt it to them if there was a special need or something
Right.
that was beyond their control. For example, our youngest one had a learning glitch. It really wasn't a disability, it was just a glitch.
Yep.
And she had struggle learning some things. So why don't you tell that story, because you're the one who really did all the work with her.
Well, because she had a learning glitch, her glitch was from her brain to her hand. And actually her right hand, because she's right-handed, but her brain and her hands it's like they weren't connected. We ended up doing some research, found some help online, and Abby ended up having to do exercises and actual physical exercises to help her brain retrain that pathway from brain to hand. And so it was a 6-month long thing that we had to do with her.
Yeah.
And what else do you want me to talk about?
Well, just in that process, she was trying to obey us. She's trying to do her schoolwork.
Yes.
She's trying to do the writing and the reading.
But it was difficult for her. Like, difficult past just she didn't want to do it.
Right.
It was difficult because it wasn't connecting and she couldn't do it. So it was an actual she couldn't.
Right. And we had an expectation for her to do these things right now, right away. So there's a frustration level that set in for her and a frustration level that set in for us.
Right.
Because we're like, come on, child, and she's getting frustrated. She's like, I am trying here.
Yeah, and it affected not only like her writing, but it also affected like her her abilities in math. Her math abilities would not connect either, and so it just was a really difficult time for her. She's trying, but she can't make it happen, and so we had to give her a little slack.
And you have to learn to have some grace. So when we're saying set expectations, we're not saying be dictatorial. We're not saying, etch it in concrete and, it's this way or period. There's no room for fluctuation or to be able to flex out a little bit. There is, but the fluctuation or the flex should be the, not the rule, but the exception.
Yeah. So like when we were working with Abby, when I was working with Abby in particular in her schoolwork and things, there were days where we started into it and you could just tell from the beginning, I was expecting her attitude to come to a certain level and her attitude was not anywhere near that. But rather than exasperate and just frustrate her to death, we stopped for the moment, still expecting her to keep her act together, but we stopped doing what we were intended to do that day, and we tried something different. We just flexed out of it. Not because we wanted to give her any special treatment, and not because we didn't expect her to obey, but because for her in that moment it was going to be excruciating rather than helpful.
For everybody.
So, for everyone,
Yeah.
So there had to be some flex, but she understood that we were requiring her to learn the information, and so she did a lot of memory, and she did a lot of oral work. Just speaking it to me, answers and things like that. And we didn't write for 2 years almost while we fixed everything, and then we slowly worked on putting things back in. But she was never excused from obeying the standard of you will learn and you will become an educated person. That was the standard. Everybody in our family had to learn. Right.
And here's what the outcome was. The outcome was that now she writes extremely eloquently with very deep thought, very great insights when she makes a post for our ministry page or for our ministry group on Facebook, or she does something with the podcast or whatever she's doing. When she writes something, it's amazing. It's incredible. I think a lot of that comes from she had to work so hard to get to that place. So now, it's not, even now when she writes, it still challenges her, but she has all these thoughts and all these ideas, but they came from us not lowering our expectation, not lowering the fact that she had to learn,
and she had doing everything we could to help her.
Oh, absolutely.
In the standard.
Yeah. So that's part of the process is learning how to convey to your child your expectation, and one of my favorite quotes, and you'll hear me say it from time to time. I'm sure I've said it on other podcasts. I know I've said it on other videos. I actually did a video just about this one quote a couple of years ago on something else I was working on, and it's talking about setting standards. And we were in where my kids went to Bible school at, and we took a bunch of kids to camp down there one year, and this young pastor was speaking, and he was saying to us, he goes, a standard is something to not live up to. It's something to never go below. Right. And so that was, earth-shattering to us at that moment. Like, who thought? Because we always talk about, you want to live up to this. You want to attain to the standard. He's like, no. You set the standard, and you don't go below it. If you dip below it, you got to figure out why and get back to at least the minimum of the standard. And so that's on you. It was on us as parents to convey what that standard maybe.
Right.
Um,
So
go ahead.
when your kids are little, like when our children were littles, they were like 8 and under. Um, we would literally stand in front of them and say, "Now, mom and dad expect that you are going to do your chores every day."
Right.
And we had a chore chart. We did all the things that made it better and easier for them to and help
Yeah.
them to get done. But we let them know specifically, we expect that you are going to do all of your chores,
Yeah.
and you're going to mark your chart, and or whether it was with a pencil or with a sticker, whatever we were doing,
Right.
they had to mark their chart, and then they needed to make sure that I didn't have anything else that needed to be done. And so these were the things we would explain to them verbally in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
go over it with them so that they knew what the expectation was.
Right.
When they got to be older, like in their teens, let's take it to the other end. In their teens, they already knew what most of the standards were,
Right.
because we had already trained them in the standard.
Right.
But then teen life brings a couple new standards
Mm-hmm.
about how they're going to interact with people, how they're going to interact with people of the opposite sex, just things that, and we had talked about these kind of things slowly all along. But then when you get to that stage, you do have to reiterate, these are our standards. This is what we expect you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even things like if you're going out with friends, we expect you to communicate with us. We expect you to be home by this time.
Mm-hmm.
We set the standard, what it is. This is when you will be on what Brian's family calls our side of the door.
That's right. Not your side.
Not your
My
side, our side of the door.
Right.
At such and such a time. And so, you just have to always make clear to your kids what your standards are. And so the two of you as a couple have to know, husband and wife have to know what you believe the standards should be. You have to already have discussed them, talked about them, have it solidified in your mind.
Absolutely.
What it is, or else you don't have unity, and then you're going to have strife. And that's going to be bad. So
yeah, and I don't care what age your children are, as littles, preteen, teen, even into adulthood, they are well equipped to know how to divide you and mom, you and dad.
Yeah,
it's a natural product of, I believe, the fall of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll do that. So even like she was saying, the expectations, we have adult children now. None of our children, our youngest is 19. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all have personal responsibility.
Yes.
But they still live with us. Not all of them, but some of them still live with us. And so they still have to abide by house rules. I'll give you an example. My oldest son, I don't dictate to him when I assign a chore to him. Mm-hmm. What I do is say, hey, Scott, I need this, this, and this to get done.
Yeah.
And if you can get that done. And I need that done today. Mm-hmm. Or I need that done by the end of the week. Mm-hmm. I give him an expectation when I expect the job to get done, that task to be completed. Right. Now, he's like, okay, cool. I'll get that done. And I say 97% of the time, it's done. I don't even have to really follow up on that, though I do, because that's part of expectation is follow up.
Sure.
And so I follow up to make sure the task is complete.
Almost as if you're an employer.
Yeah.
I mean, like an employer would do the same thing, tell you what they want you to get done, and then check up on it.
Then let you go do it.
Hopefully they would do that.
Right. Let's hope. And then when he doesn't get that done, I'll just simply come in and go, hey, Scott, I was noticing. And he takes everything real serious. He's like, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm not mad. Were you actually going to do it? Or do I need to go ahead and do that? That's my snarky sarcasm father come out sometime. And it's like, I'll get it done. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I had set an expectation for time frame. When that's not met, he's not, 7 anymore. So he doesn't have to do it.
No, and you don't threaten him.
Not at all. I can't threaten him with a spanking or grounding or anything. I'm just like, are you going to do that or not? Because if not, I'll go ahead and take care of it. But because we've taught them the other expectations they've grown older to honor their parents, it's the first commandment that comes with the promise to honor your parents, and you'll get a long life, and they don't live a long time. Yes. So they'll do it. Right. And so it's learning how to, in each phase of their life, set expectation, not just that benefits you, but benefits both of you mutually.
Right.
And so when you do that, it really helps you to um, not get mad.
Right.
It helps you not get disappointed
Yeah.
in what they do from different ages all the
Mm-hmm.
way through.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to set those expectations,
Right.
and you have to set those standards. And like Leslie said, we came together and had a conversation about the minimal amount of behavior that we expected,
Mm-hmm.
the minimal amount, that we would allow,
Mm-hmm.
realizing that they're, going to have moments where they're not going to do what they're supposed to do,
Sure.
but we expect them every time
Mm-hmm.
to do that, because we talk about our house about excellence
Yes.
all the time.
Yep.
So expectations should be tied to excellence,
Yes.
but that's taught. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't started and your kids are older, it's going to be a challenge. But start young if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Start teaching your expectations. Start teaching how to do things with excellence,
Mm-hmm.
and to do things well, and to
Mm-hmm.
complete the job.
Yeah.
Because it's never really, people don't pay attention to how you start something.
Right.
They pay attention to how you finish
Finish it.
something.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want them to finish well. Anything else?
Definitely finish well. I think even when it comes to how we came into agreement, Brian and I came into agreement about discipline and what were the really big crimes that you quote unquote crimes that we wanted to make sure were we viewed our parenting as angling them in the right direction. And so everything that we were doing, it's like when you have rebar, and if it goes too far one way, you got to pull it back the other
She's
way.
still my story.
And,
I love
I
it.
know. So you got to use all those pictures to remember that. Okay, so we talked. We decided that the things that were most important for us were in obedience.
Yeah.
And no defiance.
Right.
We didn't want defiance, because defying parents is like
It's rebellion.
rebellion, and rebellion is very sinful against God and against parents. It's not honoring parents. It's not good. It's not a good thing. It doesn't line up with God's word for
Right.
them to be defiant to us. And so those were kind of the lying is the other one.
It's huge
Lying
in
is
our
the other
house.
one. Huge in our book. Do not lie. Tell the truth. And we believe those are godly standards that we had. We wanted them to obey, to not be defiant, to be honoring, and we wanted them to not lie.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the top. Those were the cardinal sins. If they went the wrong direction, we needed to pull them back the other way.
Yeah.
But we decided that ahead of time. These
Yes.
were what were important to us. There may be things that are a little more important to you that weren't as important to us, but
Right.
we agreed ahead of time. That's the point.
Yeah.
That we agreed what we wanted to definitely have punishment and correction.
Uh-huh.
Correction is the important thing. Correction on, so that they would learn to not do those things in their life.
Right.
And now we have adult children who tell the truth, who obey the authorities in their life,
Yeah.
and they are not defiant, but they are very honorable people,
Yeah.
and they are disturbed by others not being honorable.
Yes, they are.
So it came out well because we had a standard and we taught them that standard.
Yeah. And what do you do with a child who's defiant and doesn't respond to discipline or correction? You keep
doing it.
Keep working with them. We had one child, I'm not naming a name, who was very defiant as a young child, and they almost didn't make it alive into their preteen and teen years because they were exceptionally defiant. And we kept working with them and working with them, and even yelled at them at times, which is not our normal type of discipline. But we had to really work with them, and then we had to really make it spiritual for them. When you're defying us, you're defying God.
Mm-hmm.
And you're defying God, and then you're going to church, and you're going to youth group, and you're going to all these places,
Mm-hmm.
and you're being all this sweet thing, nice person with all these other people, but you're not doing it at home. So are you really living a lie, or what do you want the truth to be? And that really kind of broke their heart
Mm-hmm.
to where they're like, well, I want to serve God fully and totally. And there was a shift that took place. It was work.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're telling you, when you set the expectations, we're not telling you that they're all going to do what you want them
Right.
to do
Right.
all the time. But if they understand, that's the bottom line. This is where the bottom line is. Eventually, they will come into order. And we're talking about biblical order in a household
Yeah.
and expectations. And they'll come into the right biblical order, and they'll understand that you're not trying to ruin their fun.
No.
You're not trying to keep them from accomplishing and being everything that God wants them to be. Just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to feed into that, help them reach God's plans and purposes and His destiny for their lives.
Yeah.
But you have to do that by setting standard expectations in the natural realm,
Yes.
so they can understand. Because, let's put it this way: if they won't obey me, if they won't obey Leslie, my children, and I'm like, I need you to go do this for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's uncomfortable. It's a job that they don't want to they don't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and we all have that, right? We all have chores and things that we don't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
You know, I hate laundry, hate it. So when we first got married, I would do dishes, and she would do laundry.
Yeah.
And then we had children, and they get to do dishes, and I get out of the laundry. It's a good deal. That's changing, but anyway, I'm just having fun.
He's got a new awakening coming.
I do.
Anyway.
But anyway, there's things you don't like to do, and they don't like to do, but they have to learn how to do them. And really, it's not even so much they have to learn how to do the chore; they have to learn how to obey in something that they don't really like.
Yeah.
The Bible talks all the time about submission and being submissive, husband and wife to each
Yes.
other. It talks about being
Doing
submissive to
things
God's
unto
will.
the Lord.
Mm-hmm. You never know how submitted you are to your workplace, to your church place, to your family, to your spouse, to your parents, until you are directed to do something that you absolutely do not want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you find out how submitted you are in that moment.
Yes.
Like I've been in churches where I've been on staff, and then the leaders are like, I want you to do X, Y, Z. And I really didn't want to do that. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit here in a second, but I would do what they asked me to do. Now, often I'd go in and have a conversation about this is not, I don't see this as the right thing to do. We do that with our children. As they aged.
Not when they were 3.
No. So I would say starting about 9, 10 years old, they could not argue with me, but they could debate with me.
Ask questions.
And ask questions about the why.
Mm-hmm.
They could give me their point as to why we should or shouldn't do the thing that I've asked them to do or not to do. And they can begin to have reason with me and talk to me with no repercussion. Because and sometimes they swayed me, and sometimes like some of my kids would make really good attorneys.
Yeah. Well, what about this instead of that?
Yeah,
they could really come up with good
all
ones.
of that.
Yeah.
But they did things, but we gave them room to question, to ask why, and then we explain, because part of setting expectations is communication.
Yeah.
And explaining why. Now, sometimes I'm like, I can't tell you why on that one, but I'm just going to tell you you're going to have to obey me.
Yes. There were times where it was just, you just have to obey this one, because there was no debate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's because of safety. Sometimes it's because of it just has to be done. I mean, there are different reasons, but.
And sometimes the explanation isn't really age appropriate.
Right.
They don't really understand what or why, but they will later.
Yeah.
And there'll come a time, I've actually had a couple conversations with my older children, like, when you did this one thing that one time, is this why? I said, yes, it is. And so, well, thank you for doing that. Absolutely. And it's amazing when they come back and thank you for the discipline you gave them way back whenever. But it's all by the expectation.
Yeah.
It's all by, and you get what you expect. If you expect a brat, you're going to get one. Yeah. If you expect a poor student, you're going to get one. If you expect a student, I mean, where I went to college, this small Midwest college, and there was a guy in my dorm. His mom was a valedictorian when she went to that college. Her dad was a valedictorian when he went to that college. I think he had an older sibling who also was valedictorian of their class. So when he had this expectation,
it was very high,
to be the valedictorian of his class.
Yeah.
And then he got engaged his senior year, and guess what happened? Both of them, they were co-valedictorians of their class. You talk about the academic pressure in that household. but still there was an expectation laid,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't fall down below the standard.
Right.
They stayed at the standard and
Right.
above.
Yeah.
And I think that their GPAs were actually better than their parents' GPAs when they graduated. So it was a matter of expectation and a standard that was set well before they ever hit college.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
But it carried through, and it was a legacy in that school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know, they're old enough. I don't know if their kids went there or not. I've lost track of them and their children, but there's an expectation they've set in their home academically.
Yeah.
So you can set a tone or expectation academically.
Mm-hmm.
You can set a expectation emotionally.
Yeah.
What you expect.
Mm-hmm.
We don't put up with a lot of the female drama that takes place, and I've got
with male drama either,
No,
but no
either-
drama.
either one, but we all know female drama tends to be a little bit more dramatic than male drama. Not always, but usually. And so I have 3 girls. They didn't get to be drama queens. They didn't get to do that. Not that they didn't have moments.
But that's because we told them the expectation
Right.
was that they would possess their souls,
Yeah.
is what the Bible says. Possess your emotions and have self-control,
Right.
which is a fruit
Fruit
of the Spirit. And so the expectation for them was to have a handle on themselves,
Right.
not let themselves just be wild and out of control with all of their emotions and
Right.
and different things going on in their life. So
Yeah, and likewise with our boys, we did the same thing with them.
Yep.
And so, really, what you get out of your children
mm-hmm.
is highly determined by what you
You're
expect
expecting.
you're going to get out of them.
Yeah.
You know, I hear people all the time talk about, well, they're going to be spoiled, they're going to be a brat, they're going to be this. We don't do that. We spoke over our children
Mm-hmm.
because we had terrific 2s, right?
Yep.
Tremendous 3s, terrific 4s.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic 4s, fabulous 5. We spoke over them so they didn't fall into the statistical expectation
Yeah.
that's given to you by government and the world,
Mm-hmm.
and so we set them a higher standard,
Yes.
and they accomplished to that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I think that we're going to pick that up in the next video and
Ooh.
run with that one.
She's shutting me down, but it's okay. So thanks for listening, and we will talk to you all very, very soon. Have a great day. All right, for now, goodbye.
Bye.